Hey, my name's Dan Fallon, and this is the Whole Man Mission podcast. And it's the first podcast that the Whole Man Mission are ever going to launch. Now, I've been procrastinating about this podcast for probably years, really. I've been talking about it for a long time. Not specifically the Whole Man Mission podcast, but I've been talking about doing a podcast for a long time. And I've always put obstacles and barriers up to why I can't just get a camera, a speaker, and some lighting and just film just even myself talking about a subject, talking about something that might resonate with people. So I've been spending time with a guy recently, who we're going to talk about in a second, who has inspired me more to just get on with stuff. And the reason being is because you never know what's around the corner. And the guy I'm going to talk about today, because what I want to do with the Whole Man Mission is I talk about inspirational stories or just stories that resonate with people and make, certainly blokes, feel normal when things in their life and circumstances that they're going through, so they can relate to other people and think, oh, actually, that's a bit, some other people go through that sort of stuff. But anyways, before we go on, I want to read to you a story that actually motivated me to do this today. And I posted something on my LinkedIn, and an old friend of mine that I did PT course with. So, well, for those that don't know me, I have a military background, Royal Navy, physical training. And one of the guys that I did PT course with posted this on a video that I put out. Because basically we have these grandiose ideas of changing the world, and I've always had that sort of mindset. I don't know where I get it from, if I'm honest. And yeah, so whatever I do, I always think, oh, it's going to change the world. I wrote kids' books, oh, it's going to change the world. I wrote a book, oh, it's going to change the world. But actually, even if it just impacts just one person, and this story that the guy posted on as a comment on my LinkedIn, this really resonated with me at that moment in time, hence the reason why I'm sat here probably talking to you right now. And let me read the story. It's called The Starfish Story. An old man had a habit of early morning walks on the beach. One day after a storm, he saw a human figure in the distance moving like a dancer. As he came closer, he saw that it was a young woman, and she was not dancing, but reaching down the sand, picking up starfish and gently throwing them back into the ocean. Young lady, he asked, why are you throwing starfish into the ocean? The sun is up, the tide is going out, and if I do not throw them into the ocean, they'll die. But young lady, do you not realize that the ocean is miles and miles and miles, and there'll be starfish all along it? You cannot possibly make a difference. Young woman, listened politely, paused, and then bent down, picked another one up and threw it into the ocean, past the breaking waves. Yes, but it made a difference to that one. And when I read it, I thought to myself, loads of times I can get in front of people and think that I'm going to have a mass of people to talk to and change their lives. Whilst that is amazing, and I do hope at one point that I get that privilege to do that, but just getting in front of the camera with a microphone and talking to you, that's enough. And it may be I only have one person watch this. I may only have one person listen to this. But if you are listening and it does shift in you to change something, or this story I'm going to tell you next resonates with you, then brilliant. So today I want to talk about how my morning started. So Wednesdays have become something it's become habitual on a Wednesday. On a Wednesday, I go and pick my friend up. My friend has got MS and it's secondary progressive. Very, very it's impacting his life severely. So he's in a motorised chair. He's lost the ability in his legs to walk, and he's starting to lose other abilities, and it's becoming even more limited. So he was diagnosed with MS about 20 years ago. 20 years ago when he was diagnosed, we were very close and we did a lot of travelling together. We went around the world, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia. We've got quite a lot of stories which I can tell you on another day. And he was a really strong mentor. He's about 10 years older than me. So at the time, he was a very strong mentor. And when he was diagnosed with MS, everyone didn't really understand MS. And it was like, oh, right, okay, so you're going to get tired sometimes and you're going to, and at the time, he'd start to lose a little bit of function on one of his legs. And he started to limp a little bit. So I knew he used to have blackouts and stuff. And that's what drove him to ask the medical professionals what's going on. And that's when they came out with, look, Mr. White, you've got MS. Anyways, fast forward to today. Knox and I have had a bit of a break in our relationship. So for about 8 years, we didn't really spend a lot of time together for various reasons. I had family, maybe like I was saying, we don't know whether we fell out and we can't even remember what it was about. So there's a lesson there already. Like, if you've got a feud or you fell out with somebody and you can't even remember what it was about, but you just know like you fell out and you really loved that person and valued their friendship, or you valued them being part of your family, maybe it's time to pick up the phone and say, look, what was we actually even falling out about? Let's just put it aside, because tell you what, mate, life goes by so fast. And if you're forgetting what you're actually upset about and why you fell out, then there's a story in there, and maybe we have to put our egos aside at some point and just get on with life. And, walking around with the burden of being angry with somebody, even if it's at a subconscious or conscious level. I mean, certainly from the information and education that I'm having with regards to the Whole Man Mission, sometimes we just have to ask for forgiveness or give for forgiveness. And so anyways, going on to the day-to-day. Wednesday mornings, usually pick Knocker up, take him to the gym, and we do some passive work because I work in clinical exercise. So my background, if you've never met me before, is I'm a clinical exercise specialist, and I work in the wellness space in corporates, and I own a gym in Portsmouth. And I go pick Knox up, we come to the gym, and we do some passive work. And he has been on the ski erg. I don't know if you know what a ski erg is, but it's a machine that is kind of like an upside down rowing machine, and it is made by Concept 2 as well. But anyways, today he rang me just as I'm parking up to come into his house, and he's not well. He's had what we call an episode, and over the last 48 hours he's been in significant pain, and he's starting to lose power in his left arm. So he's already got quite a lot of limitations, and he's in a motorised chair. And today, he's not up. He can't even face getting out of the house. So politely, I did say, "Can I still come and see you?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course," which I was really proud about, because I didn't want to not see him today. But I went and got some coffees, because usually what will happen is he'll come to the gym and we do some passive work and that, and do some rehab. And we go and have a sausage sandwich and a cup of coffee. and we just talk about everything. And most of the time, he's just talking about how great times that we used to have together, and he's always planning about what he's got left to do in life, and we just sometimes we write some articles together as well. So I didn't want today not to see him. So I wanted to see him today, basically. So anyways, went and got coffee, got some breakfast for us to take out, and went to spend some time with him. Now, it was quite scary. I mean, for me, I know this might sound quite selfish, but like seeing a friend deteriorate so much, and bear in mind I hadn't seen him for such a long time. So his wife and his bestest friend in the world, Kev Green, they've seen this. So they're kind of like almost desensitized to it, even though what I'm sure when they think about it very, very deeply, they can get very upset about it. But for me, I'm quite new to it all. So when he says like I can't get out and I've had an episode, and then I go and see him and he's not well, it's quite hard. but I tell you now though, it's not as hard as him actually living it. So that's one thing that I keep going to my head. Stop being selfish. Stop thinking about like your feelings and emotions about his circumstance. He's actually in the circumstance, so get over yourself, sort of thing. But anyways, so what I found very inspirational about Knox and his attitude is how he still always wants to see the brighter side of life, and he always wants to make you feel comfortable, and he's got this real charismatic way of helping you feel more comfortable with his situation whilst making you laugh. And now that is an art. I mean, the guy is in a significant amount of pain. He's the amount of fear he must have of it being close to the end. If it was close to the end, yeah, he's there and he's asking me how my day is going, or how my week is going, and whether I'm okay. And I just found that to be just enormously inspirational, how he is still quite selfless. And I think one of the lessons I learn from him every time we spend some time together, one is very humbling, but two is how much suffering can we live with, and how much pain can we live with if we know that it means something. And what I mean by that is, biblically or religiously, whatever your faith is, or whatever you even have a faith, most faiths always talk about suffering, but they always talk about suffering and pain being meaningful. And Knox is actually living that life at the moment, where his pain and suffering has become so meaningful to not just himself, but to others. How others can live with seeing a man that they love go through so much. And then how much people can become more kind and learn a bit more about themselves with regards to their own mental resilience of heartache. And we often talk about this quite often in regards to his condition and his illness, is how it actually starting to make more sense to him, and how the more he sees meaning in it. So he's got a brand called The Gift of Being Broken. And I think he talks more about that in his own podcast. I think he's got a podcast. He told me he's got a podcast today, actually. So I'll research that, and I would recommend anybody else out there. I'll ask him for a link and maybe put it into the notes. But The Gift of Being Broken. Now, not to the level of what Knox has been through, but I've had lots of injuries where I've come to the conclusion that actually being injured is a gift, because it teaches us more about how humility and actually being humble than any other circumstance, I believe. And yeah, Knox is definitely the epitome of learning to find meaning in suffering and pain. And I think that's what I really wanted to speak about today, because it's on my mind, and I've thought to myself, well, I want to start this podcast because I've read this starfish story, as I read to you earlier on. And I've spent some time with Knox, who's then pushed me into the sort of stop procrastinating. You never know what's around the corner. So I came home today and I thought, I'm going to start this podcast. Whether I just waffle and talk shite, I don't know. I don't know. Whether you're resonating with this story, I don't know. What is the meaning of all this conversation? Well, for me, it's about this conversation, to round it up, is about humility. And it's about what we can live with and suffer if we find meaning in it. Really, I know a lot of people out there listen to podcasts and read books about them sort of topics, and I know that obviously the whole Man Mission is about finding a better place within our mental health. But this guy who I'm spending time with at the moment, Knox, really is an example of what we can live with and what we can bear if we find meaning in it. Right, that's the first podcast. I think I've said enough. Whether we have guests on, whether I speak to somebody on the next one, I hope so, because you're not always listening to my dulcet tones, then, are you? But thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. It's raw. I'm not that good at editing, but hopefully this story has resonated with you. Thank you.